I always thought love meant settling for someone who could tolerate you. At least, that's how it felt with Alex. We'd been together since we were kids, high school sweethearts, and for the longest time I believed I was lucky he stayed. I never loved my body. I wasn't slim, I had stretch marks I never showed, and I always kept the lights off. Even in summer, I wore oversized clothes to hide what I didn't want anyone to see. He never complained, not exactly. But I felt the shift when we turned 30. He started working late, going to the gym alone, taking more solo trips with his guys. And every now and then, he'd joke about my clothes, or ask why I didn't wear makeup anymore. I laughed it off because what else was I supposed to do? I didn't want to seem sensitive. But the truth was I noticed everything. The way his eyes wandered in public. The way he followed fitness influencers online. He never posted me. Never complimented me unless I was dressed up for someone else's event. And even then it felt forced, like he was checking a box. Still, I told myself it was normal. That long-term love wasn't supposed to feel exciting. That he stayed despite my flaws. I bent over backwards to make things work. I cooked, cleaned, booked surprise getaways, bought new clothes hoping he'd notice. I even tried waking up early to work out, thinking maybe if I changed my body I could fix what was breaking. But the more I tried, the colder he got. He rarely touched me anymore. When he did, it felt like obligation. Mechanical. Like he was elsewhere in his mind. I started blaming myself more. Maybe I let myself go. Maybe this was my fault. Maybe if I was prettier, tighter, more together, he'd love me again. Nights were the worst. I'd lie next to him, wide awake, staring at the ceiling while he snored like nothing was wrong. I'd scroll Reddit for hours, reading stories from women who'd been cheated on. They always started the same. Something felt off, they blamed themselves, then they found proof. I didn't think I'd ever be one of them. I thought he was different, just misunderstood, maybe tired. I was so deep in denial. I couldn't hear the alarms blaring in my own chest. I stopped looking at myself in the mirror. I didn't like what I saw. I didn't want to be reminded of why he didn't want me anymore. The worst part wasn't even the rejection. It was the silence. The way he let me shrink into myself while pretending everything was fine. I kept trying to fix something he wasn't even willing to acknowledge was broken. I thought this was just how love looked after 10 years. I thought I was the problem. I thought he stayed because he loved me. I didn't know yet. I was wrong on all counts. It started with a receipt. A spa weekend I never went on, charged to our joint card. I stared at it, confused at first, thinking maybe it was a gift or something he forgot to mention. When I asked, he barely looked up from his phone and said it was a work thing. I didn't believe him. His voice was flat, too casual, too rehearsed. Later that night, I checked the rest of the transactions. A lingerie store. A hotel bar we'd never visited. None of it added up. The pit in my stomach hardened into certainty. I confronted him again. This time he got defensive. Said I was being paranoid. That I was projecting my insecurities. He smirked like he was the sane one, and I was losing my mind. He reminded me of how I always hated my body, and how that made me sensitive. His words weren't loud, but they cut deeper than any scream could. He didn't deny it outright. He just made it my fault for even asking. And I almost dropped it. Almost convinced myself I was overthinking. But I couldn't sleep. I waited until he passed out beside me, then reached for his phone. He never changed his password. Maybe he never thought I had the nerve. I opened the messages. The truth was worse than I imagined. There were texts with her, Tina, the girl from his office, the one he said was annoying. Photos, voice notes, long conversations. They weren't just sleeping together. They were laughing at me. He'd sent her a selfie of us on our anniversary with the caption, "Poor thing thinks I'm into her." I felt like my lungs collapsed. Everything I thought I was imagining had been real. Every cold look, every insult disguised as humor, every excuse, it was all groundwork for betrayal. And now I had proof. Screenshots, timestamps, locations. I scrolled further. He told her he had to pretend to enjoy sex. Said he couldn't stand the way I looked without clothes. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. I was frozen. Not in anger, just in shame. Shame that I stayed. Shame that I thought I deserved this. For 3 days I said nothing. I acted normal, cooked dinner, smiled on cue, responded to his fake affection like nothing had changed. But everything inside me had shifted. I didn't cry. I didn't ask why. I just started seeing him for what he was. A coward who weaponized my insecurities to excuse his cruelty. He didn't cheat because I wasn't good enough. He cheated because he could. Because he knew I was too broken to believe I deserved better. I didn't look at him the same after that. I stopped seeking his validation. Stopped listening when he spoke. The fear I'd always carried, the fear of being alone, of being unloved, had been replaced by something stronger. Clarity. For the first time, I wasn't scared of losing him. I was disgusted that I ever begged him to stay. I didn't know my next move yet, but I knew I was done letting him define my worth, that I didn't leave in a storm. I left in silence. While he was out, I packed what mattered, deleted myself from the shared accounts, and left a short note. No explanaciones. Just a sentence. I know everything. I didn't know him more. I didn't want closure. I wanted out. For the first time in years, I felt like I was moving toward something instead of holding on to what was already gone. I stayed with my sister. She didn't ask for details, just made space for me. The first few days were quiet. I didn't cry. I didn't talk. I just existed. I slept in, ate what I wanted, wore clothes that didn't hide me. No one commented on my body. No one stared when I walked into a room. That alone felt like a kind of freedom I didn't realize I was missing. I started therapy 2 weeks later. I told her everything, not just about him but about the years I spent apologizing for existing. I admitted that I'd built my identity around being grateful someone loved me, even if that love came at a cost. She didn't judge. She helped me unpack the stories I told myself, the ones that made me believe I had to earn affection by being small, quiet, and less. The more I spoke, the lighter I felt. I made a list of things I stopped doing. Singing in the shower. Laughing at my own jokes. Dancing while I cleaned. Things I once loved that I abandoned to make space for someone who never made space for me. Slowly I brought them back. One at a time. I picked up journaling, not to analyze everything, but just to hear my own voice again. I walked every morning. Not to lose weight. Just to feel the sun on my face. I started posting anonymously on Reddit, telling my story in pieces. Not for validation, but to speak the truth out loud. The comments were kind, but one stood out. A message from someone named Liam. It wasn't flirtatious or dramatic. Just simple. He wrote, "I'm sorry that happened to you. You deserve to be loved with care." I didn't reply right away, but I kept reading his posts. They were thoughtful, gentle, honest. After a few days, I responded. Our conversations started slow. Just a few messages a day. We talked about music, books, life after betrayal. He never pried. Never made it about himself. He just listened. And when I told him I hated video calls, he said, "No rush. I want to know you, not your lighting." It wasn't romantic yet. It didn't need to be. It just felt safe. I didn't know where it was going, and I didn't need to. What mattered was how I felt. For the first time, I wasn't trying to shrink myself to fit into someone's life. I was learning how to exist without apology. I wasn't healed yet, but I was healing. And that was enough for now.